Welcome back, viewers at home, and thank you so much for tuning in right here on INX Prime Channel 345 on your decoder. Now, today we have the privilege of chatting with registered dietitian Amina Dindar, who will guide us in creating a holistic wellness plan, not just for the new year, but for lasting lifestyle changes. Now, as we approach a new chapter in our lives in 2025, it is quite essential to reflect on our health and well-being. And Amina is here to provide an expert advice and inspiration for incorporating positive, sustainable changes into our routines starting now. Assalamu alaikum, Amina, and jazakallah so much for joining us.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and thank you so much for having me.
It's always a pleasure, just sitting down and conversating with individuals who are always here to tip us on how to be healthier and better and more productive in our lifestyles. Now, many of us struggle with the temptation to make drastic changes come January the 1st, right? And only to burn out a few weeks in the process. Now, I mean, can you just, equip us on how we can set realistic goals that really stick throughout the year?
I think it's so true what you're saying, because I think most of us, especially at this time of the year, we sort of give up on the goals that we have set January 2024, and we think, end of the year, why must I start now? Let me just wait until January 2025. And it's actually the wrong approach to have. I think we need to start focusing more on habit building, and that's something that we can actually start right now instead of just waiting until 1st of January and making a drastic change. So rather than focusing on only end results like weight loss or fitness levels, rather aim to establish daily habits, building healthy routines like getting in enough sleep, drinking enough water with your meals, and taking your 10-minute daily walk. So trying to reach your step goals, I think, are also quite important. Breaking down your goals, instead of setting these big goals of I'm going to lose this amount of weight, or I'm going to achieve this, or I'm going to achieve that, rather set smaller goals like monthly goals, weekly goals, so that it can be more achievable. So tackling large objectives one small step at a time. Also, it's so important to embrace flexibility. Like you said, we often reach a point of burnout and then we just want to give up, but rather understanding that life will disrupt our plans. So rather than giving up after one bad week or 2 bad days, rather focus on getting back on track without feeling guilty. I think also rewarding ourselves and focusing on celebrating small wins throughout the journey of making lifestyle changes is really important.
Now, talking about, celebrating small wins, I know we're going to literally speak ourselves to over-indulging in the burpees, in the, the burgers and the likes, because you'll be like, I'm spoiling myself. It's month end, I'm spoiling myself. And now I want to know from you, what would you say are some practical tips for balancing a healthy eating with those indulgences without them being over-indulging, especially during occasions like that of holidays or family gatherings?
Most definitely. Balancing healthy eating with occasional indulgences is all about moderation, and planning is so important. One thing is to focus on portion sizes. So whenever you're having something, one of your favorite dishes, like you mentioned, burpee, your favorite chocolate cake, something like that, rather focus on having a smaller portion of it without overindulging. Also including more vegetables in your plates and salads, especially those large indulgent meals. Try to fill up on the salad or the vegetable portions so that the meal is not as heavy. That way, you'll be allowing yourself to enjoy holiday favorites or occasional favorites, but also balancing them with nutritious foods. Practicing mindfulness is also important. Taking your time while eating is so important, and something that I can't stress enough. Savoring each bite, listening to your body's hunger and fullness cues, approaching our holidays and special occasions with this guidelines are so important. And I think another important thing is planning. When it comes to holidays, when it comes to occasions, we have that sort of relaxed approach. So we'll just go with the flow type of thing. But that can often compromise your diet. It can compromise your goals. So I think planning to a certain extent is also really important.
Now, we are in a time where individuals are busy with their exams, and it's year end, and I think stress is of so much apparent in that sense, where people are stressed, they are emotionally uphill, and a lot of them, what they do is they find that food becomes a source of comfort for them. Now, how do we go about breaking these headspaces of resorting to food being a means of comfort that really speaks negatively to one's health?
It's so true what you're saying. I think we often look to food more than what it should be. Food is meant to be a means of nourishment for our bodies, and we look at food for comfort and dealing with our daily stresses. So, breaking the connection between food and emotions starts with an awareness. Taking note of the times that you reach for food. And often we're not physically hungry. It's often times where you've just had a meal and you find yourself reaching for something else. So try to identify what's triggering those urges, whether it's stress, boredom, loneliness. And once you know your triggers, you can work on finding alternate ways to cope. So engaging in activities like walking, journaling, practicing breathing is quite effective. Talking to a friend, talking to a colleague could be non-food outlets that we can use to manage stress and avoid that association of food, that emotional connection we have with food. It might also help to set boundaries around emotional eating, like waiting. Um, I often find that it really helps to set a certain rule where you say, I'm going to eat every 2 to 3 hours, because often we'll find we're hungry even before the 2 hour mark. And then we know we shouldn't be hungry because our food is still digesting in that time. So I think by slowly developing these habits, it's an important way to break that negative relationship we have with food and rather build a positive relationship with food. I think also what's so important as Muslims is our intention for eating. Every time we eat, making that intention that I'm eating the food that is provided for me by Allah to nourish my body, to engage in ibadah, to engage in my sunnah acts and things during the day. So I think building that relationship with food is so important as well.
Now, one thing for sure when it comes to creating that wellness plan, how does then one get to draft it in a way that it really speaks to, physical, it speaks to emotional as well as mental? Because you find that when you're doing most wellness plans, a lot of individuals, they focus more on what you're eating in terms of eating healthy, and then they forget the whole taking a walk or making those doing those stretches or just exercises, or forget just taking a moment for yourself and just introspecting in the aspect of mental well-being.
It's so true, and it's so important what you're saying. I think when we're trying to make changes, we, like you say, we're so focused on food and we forget about everything else that goes with it. For example, practicing mindfulness around our entire lifestyle. Things like sleep is also really important, and the amount of sleep that you get during the night also has a big influence on your choices of food during the day, on your lifestyle, on your weight, and all of that. So I think always following a holistic approach is so important. Looking at aspects of your life or negative lifestyle behaviors that you might have and trying to adjust all of them, and not only focusing on what you're eating or what you're putting into your body. Because all of those things do have an influence. The amount of activity that you do, that you participate in during the day, also has an impact on what you eat and the choices you make around food. So I think always looking at lifestyle as a holistic approach is so important. Practicing mindfulness, like I mentioned, is so important because it really brings about that awareness of what we're eating. Another thing that's so important is understanding what we're putting in our bodies, looking at food and understanding what type of nutrients are in specific foods, what type of, how much of protein is in a specific food, how much of calories, how much of salt, how much of sugar. Understanding food to that level is so important because it really creates more awareness and it helps us to understand why we choose to eat certain things. And it also helps us to make better choices around our meals.
Now, I mean, unfortunately, we have run out of time, but I'd ask from you, what would be your message of encouragement for those of us who are seeking, to make a positive change in the coming year? And what key advice would you offer to help us stay motivated and sticking to our wellness plan?
I think the most important thing is the journey to better health is not about perfection. It's about consistency and progress over time. Every small step forward is a success. And setbacks are a very normal part of the process. So always be kind to yourself along the way and don't be discouraged by minor slip ups. Instead, use them as opportunities to learn and to grow. And always focus on the why. Why did you start the journey? Why are you there in the first place? And keep reminding yourself of this purpose. The path to health is not a it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So it's a long journey. And it's building small, sustainable habits within your daily life that is going to empower you throughout the day. So I think the most important thing is stop waiting until the 1st of January to make those changes, but rather start now. Even if it's small, simple changes that you can start now, they'll make a huge difference.
I mean, Jazakallah so much, for giving us more insight on how we can live better and still enjoy, the holidays and the family gatherings without really, depriving ourselves of those laka nice treats.
Jazakallah so much for having me.
Viewers at home, that was Amina Dindar, who is a registered dietitian. Now, as she said, be mindful, be very demure, okay? Be modest in your eating. Make sure that you're having, good portions of the healthy stuff, and really try and reserve those, chips, fried chips and samosas and the likes. But viewers at home, hope you guys did get some tips on how you can live a healthy life and start up that wellness plan before January 1st strikes. But on that note, this is where we close it off for now. Let's head over to a net break. We'll see you when we come back.